The following program is intended for mature audiences.
Rudy's revelation.
You can't handle the truth.
Hey everyone, welcome to today's episode. It is Wednesday, May 28th. All right, so today it's going to be a truncated episode. There's not a ton of news, headlines, and so forth and so on. So let's just get into it. U.S. economy turns the corner. And artificial intelligence will indeed gut white-collar jobs. All right, let's get into the headlines for today. May 28th. All right, we're going to start out with the Associated Press. NPR and stations filed lawsuit against Trump, arguing ending federal funding is illegal. It's not illegal, and the Supreme Court is going to have to rule on these lower courts and all these liberal law firms and groups that anytime they want to stop what Trump is doing, what the administration is doing, will just file a lawsuit with a liberal lower court judge, and they will indeed put a stay on the Trump administration, which first of all is wrong. The Supreme Court is the only one that could act on the actions of the executive branch. You can't have lower courts just deciding a case has merit, or a lower court judge deciding a case has merit, and that's all really you need to do is to rule whether the case has standing, and in that case, you can order a stay or an injunction to stop what's happening to see if you indeed have a case and that you can permanently stop the Trump administration, which you can't do. There's no, just because a plaintiff has standing, that doesn't mean he has a case, and realistically, that's all. Now that this is working, that's all they're doing. The Trump administration does something they don't like, they file a lawsuit, and within a day, it's injuncted. All right, more news. Rasmussen poll finds U.S. in uncharted territory after 48% of Americans believe U.S. is on the right track. So it's about half. So if you didn't know the bifurcation of the United States politically, you have the weak-minded, the people that were convinced of all different sorts of lies, basically, like COVID. It really started around COVID, but it started quite before COVID when the OFA, the Obama administration, when Obama was running as a candidate, when he was drafted to run as a candidate, when he was created, that the left had figured out psychologically how to manipulate people. We have moved past the 50s idea of psychological control with the fluoride and the fluorescent lights and to mute people's reaction to things. And we moved into a more dynamic phase where we can actually get people, instead of just dumbing them down, we could activate them in certain ways, either politically, violently, etc. And so they figured this out with the use of the internet, other psychoactive medications, and over-the-counter things, and understanding how the human mind works. So that was done through the demonization of Donald Trump specifically. And as we found out with what's happening with the Biden cover-up, is that anything but Trump. So I often argue this, the ought and the not. Your belief system is shaped as much as by what you like as by what you don't like. It's the ought and the not. It's the positive and the negative. You can be pushed into action as much as what repulses you is what attracts you. So they easily learn this, and so it's very easy to demonize something, not just a person, but to demonize something, and to get you to recoil from it, and that recoiling will actually push you in another direction. And as we saw with Trump, anything but Trump gets you a brain-dead Biden, gets you a government ruled by councilism, which is basically by committee, by people in back rooms, and Biden was just a figurehead. That's not really that much different about not much different than the way that the United States has been governed for many decades now. But getting somebody in office that actually directs their own policy, like Donald Trump, is an anathema to those who controlled the establishment for so long. So Rasmussen has this poll. So we have half the country deciding, well, most of the country believe, 75% or so believe the country was in the wrong direction. Now half the country believes we're in the right direction. So there's that swing there. Of course, the half of the population that believes we're not on the right track are Democrats. After nearly half of the respondents believed the United States was heading down the right track, and a rolling average overnight showed 50% of the respondents said the same, the poll of 1,800 likely U.S. voters found that 47% of respondents believe the country is still heading down the wrong track. That's about half. While 48% believe the country is heading down the right one. So it's basically 50-50. And the way they've controlled the U.S. electorate for so long is purposefully they could sway it one way or another. If you have half the country believing, or at least they state that is the case, half the country believe in one thing, half the country believe in the other thing, it's just a matter of 5% you need to swing. Either organically or synthetically, you do it with mail-in ballots or you rig the election or what have you. So whether that's the case or not, I think more than 50% of the country believes that the United States is on the right track, because this is long overdue, and I think what Trump is doing needs more support, certainly, because the way we were going down, where we were going down that track previously was only benefiting 1% of the population realistically. And that was clear. CNBC is reporting consumer confidence for May was much stronger than expected on optimism of trade deals. Well, wait a second here. I thought people were pessimistic about the trade deals. Well, which is it? It's optimistic. Like I said just previously, the majority of people believe the country is on the right track. They believe what Trump is doing is to benefit the country as a whole and subsequently all Americans. So the way politicians used to look at what they did and how they campaigned is to make a better country. And a better country overall benefits all Americans. And all of a sudden you introduce this neoliberalism, this postmodernism that says, no, you're trying to make the country just better for the white people and everybody else is going to suffer. The economy is the economy. When the economy does better, it's the rising tide lifts all boats. Doesn't matter where you are in the economic strata. Now, you can't make the government, particularly, government policy can't make a rich man out of a poor man. That has to do with the person themselves. You can make yourself rich, but the government isn't going to come along and make you rich. That's what this whole promise of equity is. Oh, you want to be upper middle class? The government will make you that. Despite having any, not having any skill, not applying yourself, et cetera, et cetera. Also from the Wall Street Journal, Wall Street bets the worst of Trump's trade war is behind it. What is significant about this story is the mystery or the unknowns that the investor was feeling, because it's a reorganization of what's going to happen to a certain degree. Now, if you think that all manufacturing is going to leave China, you're wrong. As Trump just said recently, he doesn't care about fucking t-shirts. He cares about shit that we need as far as national security point of view. That's medicines and chips, tech. Those sort of things need to be made in the United States. He doesn't give a shit about t-shirts. I'll just read from the story here. The latest example came Tuesday when news of easing trade tensions between the U.S. and the EU powered a 2% increase in the S&P 500. You might have seen that. It was largely a single-day gain. It was the largest single-day gain since May 12th, when a rollback of tariffs between the U.S. and China spurred an even larger market rally. And the reasoning behind that is time. If companies don't have time to adjust, then there's going to be a problem economically for them, for their bottom line. And so they were worried that without being able to shift manufacturing away from China, they were going to be slapped with these huge tariffs that were going to affect return. Few think the trade tensions have dissipated, the article goes on to say, or won't speak near-term stock declines going forward, but many said the worst fears of the U.S. restrictions permanently reordering global trade have moderated, and the economic blow is unlikely to be as damaging as it appeared when Mr. Trump announced sweeping tariffs on April 2nd. The market is relieved, for now, that they can ignore the latest tariff threat. In other words, it's going to be moderated. So he'll have a threat, he'll pull back on it or delay it, and as long as the market has a chance to react, that's what the market was worried about. We just need to get past this uncertainty, which was the problem, so companies and consumers can plan ahead. Market can change, with the environment. But if you put things into place, and people said, oh, Trump was talking about this during the campaign. Well, he was, but nobody believes a politician what they say on the campaign trail. It's only when the policy is ready to be implemented, and especially with the Trump White House, he doesn't have lobbyists involved in what's going on, so it's a surprise to them. Next story up is from the Post-Millennial. Disgraced former FBI head James Comey claims entire GOP, that's the Republicans, is white supremacist adjacent. You know, that's one of the two political parties is, let me put this nicely, white supremacist adjacent at minimum. Again, this is James Comey with a psychological operation. That's a psyop. He is trying to get more longevity over the Biden administration's use of inflammatory racist language. It's considered race baiting. So Comey is saying the Republicans are racist. My brother told me that 2 years ago, that all Republicans are racist. And it's like, where do you hear this shit? Do you know any Republicans? Maybe the Republicans you know are racist, but I know plenty of Republicans and conservatives, and they're not racist. They're not all racist. Not all racist. Are any racist? I don't know. I don't really know any racist people. I mean, everybody uses generalities in humor. I don't consider that racist, though. I'm not insulting anybody for generalizations about their certain group. I don't put people's in a group anyway. You know, as far as I'm concerned, there's 7 billion individuals on the earth. You know, who cares what class or what race or what religion they come from? I kind of judge people I don't even really judge people. I give people the benefit of the doubt, but I read people on a individual basis. You know, it's people that put themselves in their own box. You know, it's kind of like fit in, to assimilate. All right, the story goes on to say Comey appeared on Jen Psaki's show on MSNBC, where he was asked by the host about fighting domestic terrorism before she inquired if there are laws that should be put into place that would better manage various threats as the Trump administration is testing the system legally. Whatever that meant, it keeps going back to Trump. You know, that's all they have is Trump is so bad. Trump is awful. You talk to any liberal out there. Oh, Trump is, he's so the worst. He's the, you know, Biden was the only president who adversely affected my life to a great degree. I mean, no other president before him whose policies really affected my life directly and to such a degree as Biden did. Trump isn't. You know, you don't like Trump tariffs? Oh, big deal. I don't listen to NPR, and NPR can be privately funded. Why do they need government money? Why does Harvard need government money? You know, it's just a grease. They take taxpayer dollars and they pay their friends. I'm a little exhausted today. I think I had too much fun over the weekend. Hard to say. So you have to forgive me if I blather on too much or not enough. Another article here from the Post Millennial. FBI opens investigation into targeted violence against Christians in Seattle. Freedom of religion isn't a suggestion. And I think that comes from Bongino. Dan Bongino of the FBI announced on Tuesday that an agency was opening an investigation into allegations of, you know, they got a proofread in the Post Millennial. Use a spell check. Allegations of targeted violence against religious groups at the Seattle concert. This follows an incident on Sunday in which a Mayday USA, a Christian group, held a permitted concert in Cal Anderson Park, which drew Antifa counter-protesters who then attacked the Christians. Well, I have to say just briefly here, a couple things. So the Christian group had a concert, and it was about their beliefs. So if their beliefs rub people in Seattle the wrong way, perhaps. In the Pacific Northwest, there have been a lot of problems with so-called right-wing groups, Christians in particular, having prayer marches and stuff, as almost to inflame the crazy leftists that live there. This has happened over time, countless times. Now, it was the city that suggested that they have the concert in Cal Anderson Park, which is in the middle of a liberal neighborhood and was one of the centers of when Seattle had that breakaway autonomous zone. So following the attack, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell condemned the Christian group who was attacked, claiming they were far right and had no business holding an event in the park due to its proximity to the locus of the LGBTQ community. That's what I mean. That's the city suggested they had to have a permit. So why did the city grant them a permit? It's specifically to do this sort of stuff. Sure, you can have this concert in our city. Here, we're just going to put you right next to the people that hate you. So there were 23 arrests were made among the militants who showed up to harass the Christian event. And that's typical also, is counter-protesting for them is harassing. They throw bottles. They're nasty. They beat people. They physically intimidate people. Even if you're, let's say, a conservative reporter and you show up at a left-wing event, they'll harass you and shove you, assault you, basically. And you're just around there asking questions. You're not even counter-protesting. So the objective of the left is always to shut down free speech. And so that's why Dan Bongino is getting involved here, which is launching an investigation into this. And it should be, because you should be allowed, if you're permitted to have an event, you should be able to have it regardless. And if the cops stand around while counter protesters harass you and throw bottles, or try to interfere with your event, they should be removed or arrested or whatever. And if they're not, that means the local government is in cahoots with the thugs. And most communists are like that. They enlist organized crime to assist them. It's always the public-private partnership. What the government can't do, they have private groups do. And what the private groups do, the private groups can't do, they'll have the government do. You should check out, Tucker Carlson just recently interviewed Mike Benz again, and they delve into the whole NGO scheme and how it originated basically at the dawn of the modern intelligence era. Real Clear Politics, Jesse Waters, the conspiracy that Biden wasn't running the country wasn't a conspiracy, it was the strategy. And this is from the show last night, quoting Jesse Waters is saying, why does Tapper sound so lawyered up? He's speaking about Jake Tapper, who wrote the book about Biden. I'm not going to apologize, but I'll give an acknowledgement. Maybe he's hearing what we're hearing. The Biden investigation's off to a strong start. Jake's defense, being stupid isn't a crime. Again, speaking on Jake Tapper, he's been in the business for 3 decades now, and he notices politicians lie. He knew the whole time politicians lie. He just went along with hiding the Bidens. Indeed, he did. But let's just go along for his argument's sake, okay? Jake just admitted he missed the biggest story of the century. Tapper basically admitted he's blind. Yeah, I told you this was a limited hangout. This whole Biden book, Original Sin, with his handler from Axios, this other guy. Who's his handler? You could tell this guy is an operative. And basically the limited hangout is, oopsie, we didn't really see what everyone else was seeing. And so we're going to try to redeem ourselves now when it's too late. The Democrats are out of office. If Kamala Harris got elected or Joe Biden got reelected, you really think this book would have came out? Apparently, as I mentioned yesterday, the book Original Sin had started back before Biden was elected, and it had a whole different take. It was an insider look into the Biden administration, and I'm telling you, when that book came out now, it would be a lot more flowery and less of an expose than it clears to be now in this limited hangout look for redemption. I don't think they're going to get any. Nobody believes the corporate system protects itself. So how are you going to, how do you trust corporate media that's protecting the corporatocracy that controls the United States government, or at least did before Trump? Trump is a fascist. No, the corporate fascism is what he's trying to undermine. Stay with me now. Wall Street Journal, Trump's new pardon attorney is eager to target Biden-era cases. Ed Martin has been flooded with clemency requests. He also wants to review applications for the restoration of gun ownership rights. So this is an all-encompassing article that covers Ed Martin, who didn't make it as U.S. attorney because he was stopped by Tom Tillis. So Trump put him in as a pardon attorney in his administration. And what he's going to do, this is a watered down article because the main focus should be is that Ed Martin's going to look into the auto pen clemency or pardons that were issued by the Biden administration. Because if Biden didn't sign those directly, they should all be revoked. Particularly the protections given to people on the J6 committee and Hunter Biden and Jill Biden and Ashley Biden and whoever Biden, the whole family, and Jen Psaki, and just a wide swath of people that could be investigated for certainly lying or wrongdoing during the Biden administration. All right, a lot of people have been talking about this. PJ Media slapping CNN and the Macron media blackout. And then the National Review has Emmanuel Macron is the best politician ever. Why? Well, if you really want to know why, it's because what originally happened is that when I believe they were in Vietnam. So Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, landed in Vietnam, I believe, and the door opens and he's standing there, and you could see the arm of his wife shove him in the face. Now, I'm looking at the picture now. Was it his wife? We don't even know if it was his wife that shoved him in the face. Who knows who shoved him in the face? Because it looked like a red sleeve, and then I'm looking at a picture here, and he has a tan jacket on. So, in any case, what it looks like is he got bitch slapped by his wife, and we know, just like in the Biden administration, who's running the show. It's Macron's wife. Macron is an empty suit. He's an ex-banker. That's the administrator of France and a deep state operative. And I mean deep state, I mean the corporate oligarchy. And we know this. We don't have the only people that are not controlled by the multinationals are the people on the right now. And the reason being is because what do the multinationals want? They want mass immigration. What do the multinationals want? They want war with Russia. So everybody that is against that is against the corporatocracy. But National Review thinks Emmanuel Macron is the best politician on the planet, basically because he said, or they say, because Emmanuel Macron recovered nicely from being pushed in the face by his wife. Just the News is reporting California faces wall of debt with $10 to $20 billion annual deficit for years. This is liberal politics. Liberal politics is indeed spending money. All what it's about. That's why they wanted liberal politicians in office, because they keep pushing money out the door. And the NGOs are there to gobble it up. And does anything really happen productive with the money? Not really. It's a payoff. It's a bribe. It's corruption. All right, and the big article today comes from Axios. And like I said, Axios is controlled by the CIA. So what are they trying to say? You're going to have to read between the lines. But the article is behind the curtain. Top AI CEO foresees white-collar bloodbath. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, one of the world's most powerful creators of artificial intelligence, has a blunt, scary warning for the U.S. government and all of us. All right, well, let's take a close look. AI could wipe out half of all entry-level white-collar jobs and spike unemployment to 10 to 20% in the next 1 to 5 years. I said a year and a half. Amodei also said that AI companies and government need to stop sugarcoating what's coming, the possible mass elimination of jobs across technology, finance, law, consulting, and other white-collar professions, especially entry-level gigs. Because what you're going to have happen here, there's not going to be any discussion. The companies are going to start employing AI, and they just won't hire humans to go into those jobs. So artificial intelligence has already started supplanting some of those jobs, especially entry level. I saw it a decade ago in journalism. They would have an intern type up weather reports and press releases, type them into quick stories or a breaking news headline or whatever. And now they don't have interns to do that. They have been for a decade now using AI. They plug all the text in, and then the AI or the algorithm would spit out a story. Hardly anyone is paying attention, says Amodi. Lawmakers don't get it or don't believe it. CEOs are afraid to talk about it. Many workers won't realize the risks posed by the possible job apocalypse until after it hits. Most of them are unaware that this is about to happen. It sounds crazy and people just don't believe it. AI job killing, which gets virtually no attention now, will be the major issue of the 2028 presidential election. Absolutely true. I've been saying this ever since they let the genie out of the bottle. And because I've been reading about artificial intelligence for years. And I know the way it was supposed to be rolled out. At first, it's just going to be a little novel thing, a play thing. Oh, isn't this cute? Within a year, it's going to start supplanting simple tasks that were used by lower end employees, that were previously accomplished through lower end employment. And then as it gains efficiency, it's going to eat up the job ladder. So from the least experienced to the most experienced. And that's happening now. I say it's within a year and a half. Amodi said it's in 1 to 5 years. It's supposed to get going for the start of the New World Order, as I often said, Christmas 2030. I want to explain this story is about spin. Now, this is the New York Post. Gunman opens fire at Connecticut mall, injures 5 people in mass shooting. Not a fucking mass shooting. It's gangbangers. If it's not gangbangers, then show me the fucking evidence. The majority of mass shootings are not mass shootings. Mass shootings mean you target multiple people with no motive behind it. I mean, you could have a motive, but it's still a mass shooting is you're targeting a majority of people. You know it's a gangbanger because nobody died. And gangbangers don't know how to shoot, and they shoot a bunch of rounds, and they don't care who they hit. Kids, people in the background. I mean, if you're trained in law enforcement or even in the military, less so in the military, but in law enforcement, you always have to know what your backstop is. If a round goes through your intended target, which most of the time with hollow points it won't, or soft points, and it won't go through barriers, like a hollow point or soft point will collapse if it hits a wall or whatever. But you're always concerned about your backstop. What's behind your intended target? Gangbangers they don't even hit the person they're trying to shoot. They just like go and fire a bunch of rounds, one-handed, and they're surprised they don't kill anybody. But what they said here is 5 people were shot at a mall in Waterbury. Well, I got some things to say about Waterbury. I was there a couple weeks ago, 10 days ago. And on Tuesday, when an argument escalated into a violent outburst from a gunman. This is at Brass Mill Center just before 4:40 p.m. Mass shooter wouldn't strike out at 4:40, but anyway. Officials emphasizing in a press conference this was not a random act of violence. What the fuck are you talking about? You just said an argument escalated into a violent outburst. Well, why would you have an argument if you're intended to kill that person? And then it says again from the fucking governor of my state, Ned Lamont, this afternoon there was a tragic mass shooting at Brass Mills Center in Waterbury, a place where everyone should feel safe. So he's already angling gun control because it's a mass shooting. You don't know if the guy got the gun legally. So what's gun control? More gun control is going to help if the guy didn't obtain the gun legally. But you're already angling for that, where everyone should feel safe. Who brings a gun to a mall? And then to argue, it sounds like young people hang out at malls. So it sounds like a young gangbanger argued with a guy over something, over drugs or turf or whatever, and then pulled out his pistol and started firing. But he didn't even hit the guy. How could you be arguing with somebody, so you got to be within 5 feet of him, and then you pulled out a gun and what, just started firing into the crowd? What? So we got to watch this story. But again, if you look at the spin, they're just, oh, it's a mass shooting. And in Connecticut, I don't want to get it. I will get into a frustration I'm having now with the state over permitting, but I'll save that for another time. Next article up here is from the New Scientist. The sun is killing off SpaceX's Starlink satellites. There have never been so many satellites orbiting the Earth as there are today, thanks in part to a launch of a mega constellation like SpaceX Starlink internet service. And now we learn just how the sun's activity can affect them. Oh, the sun's activity can affect satellites, but not the Earth. Not the Earth's weather, not climate change. The sun is the driver of atmospheric conditions, climate change, weather phenomenon on Earth. And then the Wall Street Journal has SpaceX's spacecraft makes it into space, but then tumbles, booster comes apart, and company loses control of spacecraft in latest flight test. And then Fox News says the same Starship Flight 9 ends in failure after booster loss. Success comes of what we learn, says Musk. Company remains optimistic despite booster loss and payload door malfunction during a May 27th mission. I'm telling you, look at the data. Look at the sabotage, because look at the failure of SpaceX and Tesla post Elon Musk's foray into politics and before that. He's had way more failures, particularly with SpaceX, since he got involved with Trump and also since he bought X. Wall Street Journal, Putin has retooled Russia's economy to focus only on war. Moscow expands its military recruitment and boosts weapons production, and peace could jeopardize economic gains. Not true. He's retooled Russia's economy for a focus on war is because the West has been unrelenting. To Russia, this is an existential crisis. Not 1 inch eastward. Reuters, Putin for Ukraine peace wants pledge to halt NATO enlargement, sources say. Now, this is a different headline. The original headline was no further expansion eastward. But you look at the Reuters headline, it says no more NATO enlargement. Well, NATO could move to the south or move to the west or add Greenland if it's not part of NATO already, or Iceland or whatever. It's not the point. The point is that NATO's expansion eastward has already taken over all the Warsaw Pact countries. And like I said, and like Russia has said, year after year after year, decade after decade, the proximity of Ukraine to the Black Sea and Crimea cannot be part of NATO. It's a non-starter for the, you might as well just blow up the Russian naval fleet right there, because they won't be able to function in any meaningful way if NATO has control of Ukraine, especially Crimea. It's a strategic move. That Russia could never exist the way it's always existed without Black Sea Navy. Putin wants written pledge to halt NATO expansion eastward, not enlargement, just NATO expansion eastward. Why do they go to the headline, Putin wants a pledge to halt NATO enlargement? But the real thing Putin wants is halt NATO expansion eastward. So change the word, change the meaning. And then a bunch of other shit that they water it down. They water the article down with, oh, Russia also wants a lifting of sanctions. Of course they do. And Ukraine has insisted on, Russia wants all these things. Russia wants the West to stop encroaching into its sphere of influence. It's like if China said, hey, we're opening military bases in Tijuana. The U.S. wouldn't put up with that. President Vladimir Putin's conditions for ending the war in Ukraine include a demand. The Western leaders pledge in writing to stop enlarging NATO eastward. I would agree. If you want peace, what's wrong with that? What is so important about expanding NATO? Zero Hedge is reporting Trump sent a free speech squad to the UK to investigate erosion of rights. If you didn't know what was going on here, Britain isn't free anymore. The place where the Magna Carta was born, great country. The English Revolution set forth revolutions of liberty all across Europe and in the United States. People like John Locke, etc. But they've gone all against that now because now they're part of the EU. Even though they wanted a Brexit, they still really didn't get it. And they're authoritarian. You can't stand across the street from or in front of an abortion clinic and pray silently. They don't have signs, they're just standing there. Crazy. The visit demonstrates that Trump is acutely aware of the threat to freedom that is growing in the UK and is willing to intervene in British affairs as required. And then it talks about the activists who got arrested for silently praying. But it's serious. It's like Germany and all these countries. If you make some crack online, they can come and arrest you. Article from the Wall Street Journal, North Korea infiltrates U.S. remote jobs with the help of everyday Americans. The LinkedIn message drew a former waitress in Minnesota into a type of intricate scam involving illegal paychecks and stolen data. So, like I said, this is North Korea, but to be more accurate, the New York Times yesterday or on Sunday had this big front page article about Russia's mobilization of spies trained in Brazil and this, that, and the other thing. Is hyping up Russia's espionage does not make the Chinese communist espionage any more small. Chinese espionage is 100 times bigger than Russian influence. So now they have this article on North Korea. Great. North Korea's espionage is not as profound as Russia's. And Russia's is way behind the Chinese. So, of course, how does foreign intelligence, what do? They prey on their own citizenry. They find, this is the corporate oligarchy as well, the multinationals. They find out where your ideology leans. And that's the whole thing with surveillance of your social media or your online or whatever. And then they're able to manipulate you. If you don't like Trump, they could very easily have you collect classified intelligence against Trump or subvert his administration somehow. It's the same thing with Bongino. They use this with the CIA would use this with super patriots all the time, and so did the FBI. If you really love this country, you do what's right. And then they give you some cockamamie task. Lie about Jeffrey Epstein, or, we need to share these missile secrets with China because otherwise crazy right-wingers might use it to whatever. The logic that they spin is often ridiculous. How about that? I think that's it. It was like 45 minutes. So I knew it would be a little truncated because there wasn't a ton of news today. Usually a news day is usually determined. The importance of a news day is usually determined by one or two breaking news stories. And then there's always other news, obviously. But there hasn't been that real breaking news story I give you everything that's breaking, and that is obviously different than what I reported yesterday. But there's no real news, and especially with the mainstream media, they don't want to report on success now. Or a little forecast, what we need to watch in June, which will probably happen in the first 10 days, second week in June. You're going to get the May inflation numbers. Now, I bet you it's going to be 2 or lower, but I said that last time. I think they're going to skew it again so it's not below 2. So the Federal Reserve gets another month of keeping interest rates where they are. I bet they come in at 2.1 because it can't be 2 or but they did forecast that June they would lower rates. So I think they're forecasting also that inflation will dip below 2%. But I think they're going to try to prolong this game as long as they can because they're not going to stop the Trump economy. You see it already, the forecast in the Trump economy is that it's doing very, very well in comparison because it's an adjustment period. So they're retooling the way the economy is working. So to get good signs while that's happening is even better sign by the time this all irons out. By the end of June, early July, we should start seeing the hum of the economy. So, all right, thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to engage the channel, like, subscribe, leave a comment, give me a thumbs up, share the podcast. Appreciate you joining me this morning, every day on Rumble live stream 10 a.m., Monday through Friday. And sometimes there's a weekend report there, give or take. On the weekend, we'll do a special report. So I didn't have a Tuesdays with Perry last night. I've been exhausted. I'm still fighting a sinus infection, and the weekend did a toll on me. We might have a broadcast tonight. We usually go live at 9:15, so check that out. If not, we might have to wait for the weekend or next week. I already need another coffee. It's not even 11. So join us or join me tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. on Rumble. Thanks again for joining me. Remember, you're under attack biologically and psychologically, so stay hip to that trick. And I will see you either tonight or mañana. Respect.
I like you. But you're crazy.
A new world order.